Hearing someone call, Seo Jin turns his head to look back. His friend immediately comes over, puts his arm around him, and starts chatting. However, Seo Jin's gaze is directed at the black-haired teenager with an emotionless face behind him. Suddenly, the teenager frowns slightly. Seo Jin smiles, he finds him interesting. After a while, when the two have become closer, every time he gets drunk, Seo Jin goes to Han Sung-woo's house. After ringing the doorbell continuously for a while, Sung-woo comes out to open the door. Seo Jin lifts his flushed face and asks in a daze, "So you finally decided to come out?" Seo Jin stumbles into the house, while Sung-woo grumbles, "I told you not to come here after drinking, do you know what time it is now?" Seo Jin jumps in response, "Because I hate going back to an empty house alone after a lively party. Anyway, tomorrow is Saturday, sleeping in a bit is no big deal, you don't have a girlfriend. You only have me, the only person who hangs out with you." It sounds arrogant, but it's true for Sung-woo. "Go to sleep," Sung-woo says and turns away. Seo Jin lies there laughing happily. Since the old days, he has liked that expression of Sung-woo. That day, Seo Jin and his friends were joking around, when he accidentally bumped into Han Sung-woo's back. Seo Jin apologizes awkwardly, saying, "Sorry, are you okay?" Sung-woo's face is still emotionless as usual, he just answers shortly, then adjusts his study table as if nothing happened. Seo Jin asks his friend next to him in confusion, "Is he angry? Is he angry?" His friend explains that Sung-woo is originally like that, it's the first time his friend has heard his voice. Seo Jin didn't expect such a person to exist. Sung-woo always has an emotionless face and is reticent with everyone. Like when someone accidentally smears cream on his shirt, he doesn't say anything, just quietly walks away. Since that day, Seo Jin has been interested and secretly observing Sung-woo. Just as the rumors and what he witnessed, Sung-woo always shows an emotionless face. He wonders if it's because he can't feel emotions, but that face is also magical. His friends invite Seo Jin to play basketball, but he is not interested, so he refuses. His friends continue to plead. Seo Jin has to make the excuse that even if he agrees, they are still one person short. The group plans to invite one more person from the class. His friend rubs Seo Jin's head and asks, "So you will play, right? Let's invite one more tall person." Just as Sung-woo entered the class, he stared intently at Seo Jin, who still had that emotionless face. Then, the corner of his eye twitched slightly and he turned away. Next, his face wrinkled a bit in discomfort. These fleeting expressions were hard to detect, but Seo Jin saw them all. Seo Jin couldn't believe his eyes. What did those expressions mean? While his friend was still undecided about who to choose, Seo Jin suddenly said, "I will invite that guy, what's his name again?" "Han Sung-woo," Seo Jin shouted to wake Sung-woo up. However, Sung-woo was still lazily covered in blankets, because Seo Jin had bothered him early in the morning. Seeing Sung-woo refusing to get up, Seo Jin climbed onto Sung-woo and pulled the blanket off, saying, "It's already 11 o'clock, get up and eat, I've ordered." Their eyes met. Sung-woo hit Seo Jin's head hard and told him to move away. At first, Seo Jin thought that Sung-woo had no feelings, but when he looked closely, he saw his reaction. Seo Jin enjoyed fixing Sung-woo's hair and teasing, "Your hair is like a crow's nest, ha ha." They won the basketball game that day. His friend felt lucky because he had no money left in his pocket. If he lost, he wouldn't have money to pay the bet. The other friend turned to Sung-woo and praised, "You played quite well today, you always slump your face on the table, it looks like you're not good at physical activities." The other guy was not convinced. He said it was because Sung-woo had a height advantage, he just needed to be a little taller to be good too. Speaking without knowing to be shy, his friend Jin Kook teased that it was because he played badly. Seo Jin was not as tall but still did better than him. The guy got angry and made everyone laugh, while Sung-woo's face remained unchanged. Seo Jin patted his hand and said that today's victory was thanks to him. The match was very tense. "It's true that I thought you played because you were tall, but I didn't expect you to play. I didn't even know if you liked to play or not." Despite Seo Jin's words, Sung-woo remained silent. Looking at that unchanged face, Seo Jin was curious about how much he hated him. Seo Jin continued, "But you really don't talk much, or you don't like it but still have to play, then I apologize." "No," Sung-woo just shook his head and answered briefly. "Is that so?" Seo Jin smiled and said. Sung-woo looked at him and then turned his face away, his ears suddenly turning red. "You Seo Jin." At this time, Jin Kook ran over to put his arm around Seo Jin and chatted. While he was chattering from one thing to another, Seo Jin noticed Sung-woo squinting his eyes and frowning uncomfortably, looking this way. Seo Jin smiled and thought, "That's interesting." Seo Jin stood with crossed arms, looking bored as Sung-woo grabbed his things to take a shower. He sighed and said, "I went to the trouble of waking you up to eat together, so go ahead and eat first. I'll wait until you finish showering. Seo-jin stepped closer, pleading, but when will you be done showering? However, Sung-woo remained adamant about showering first. You go ahead and eat, I'll shower. You can do whatever you want, he said. Seeing the door shut firmly in front of him, Seo-jin remarked, that guy is not cooperative at all. Seo-jin lay down on the sofa, ignoring his hungry stomach's protests. He called out loudly, are you still showering? Aren't you supposed to be doing something else? Just do it properly and hurry up, he added. At this point, Seo-jin was curious whether Sung-woo was actually doing what he said. With that expression on his face, he couldn't imagine what kind of expression Sung-woo would have. Nevertheless, Seo-jin was sure Sung-woo's hands would turn red. The sound of the door opening interrupted Seo-jin's dark thoughts. He looked up to see Sung-woo stepping out and teasingly said, you look so fresh. Oh, nothing, just come over here and eat with me. Sung-woo sat down at the table to eat, while Seo-jin remained lazily sprawled on the sofa. Watching the water droplets still clinging to Sung-woo's hair, Seo-jin unconsciously reached up to lightly stroke his hair. As he stroked, Seo-jin's mind wandered to imagining Sung-woo breathing heavily. His fingers continued to explore down to Sung-woo's neck and teasingly played with his ear. Sung-woo's enraptured expression and flushed ears appeared. Seo-jin licked his lips, his hand becoming greedier as it ventured under Sung-woo's collar. Suddenly, Sung-woo grabbed Seo-jin's hand tightly, startling him. Stop it, Sung-woo said coldly. Seo-jin stood frozen for a moment before asking, what's wrong? Sung-woo released Seo-jin's hand and turned back, saying, I told you to stop these kinds of things. Seeing Sung-woo's somewhat harsh reaction, Seo-jin stood dumbfounded. At the bus stop, Seo-jin recalls what just happened. He had explained that he noticed his hair dripping water onto the floor. Why, don't you like it? Seo-jin asked with a smile. Boring, Sung-woo replied with a gloomy face. Seo-jin didn't understand Sung-woo's reaction, he had never made such a face at him before. A friend called, urging Seo-jin to hurry to the meeting point. Just as the bus arrived, Seo-jin promised to meet later. Sitting quietly on the bus, Seo-jin sighed again, troubled by Sung-woo's unusual behavior. Then, tired, he closed his eyes to calm himself. Never mind, it's not a big deal. Seo-jin and a friend sat for a while, then his friend Jin-kook also arrived. While waiting for him to order more food, Seo-jin said he was going to the restroom for a bit. Seeing Seo-jin's figure pass by him, Jin-kook asked, he seems taller now, doesn't he? Touching a sore spot, the friend next to him replied irritably, why do you mention height as soon as you arrive? Jin-kook explained that every time they met, Seo-jin seemed taller. When they graduated from high school, Seo-jin was already taller, who would have thought he would continue to grow like this? The friend teased, in the old days, Jin-kook used to praise Seo-jin for being cute. The two were happily reminiscing about high school when Seo-jin came in and asked what was so funny. The friend explained, in high school, Jin-kook always followed Seo-jin around like a guardian. They didn't expect that after graduation, Seo-jin would be this tall. Maybe back then, Jin-kook put his arm around you, then pressed down so you wouldn't grow taller, haha. He asked further, who is taller between you and Han Sung-woo? Seo-jin thought for a moment and said, we are about the same height, but now I think I'm a bit taller. The two friends were amazed at Seo-jin's growth rate. The friend stuck out his tongue and said, I'm only saying now, if this guy didn't have a girlfriend, I would have thought he liked you. Seo-jin also chimed in, yeah, I also suspect, I don't know why he sticks to me every day. The two teamed up to tease Jin-kook. Jin-kook laughed and said, well, because you were small and cute back then, but now you're so tall, I just feel shivers all over, haha. Hearing these words, Seo-jin was startled and began to ponder something. When he got home, he looked at himself in the mirror and remembered what Jin-kook had said. He used to be small and cute, but now he's so tall that it's intimidating. He doesn't think he's cute anymore, his muscles have grown. It's very different from the past, when he had to look up to see Sung-woo. Now, he's tall enough to look down on him. Seo-jin touched his arm and sighed, so now, do you hate me? Huh? Han Sung-woo. Seo-jin noticed that Sung-woo's reactions have been unclear lately. It used to be like that, but he used to be more shy, of course, only he noticed. After bathing, Seo-jin lay on the bed thinking, in the end, he still didn't know what Sung-woo was thinking. Was it because he was in a bad mood? Seo-jin sat up and went to the wardrobe to change clothes. If he didn't know what Sung-woo was thinking, he had to find a way to know. Seo-jin went straight to the supermarket and bought a basket full of beer and fruit wine. On the day of the high school graduation ceremony, the four of them decided to have a farewell party. His friend even bought fruit-flavored wine. He was the only one among the four who had an ID card. After eating, they all went to the beach, and then they would return to drink all the alcohol they had bought. Jin Kook wasn't very excited. He advised to drink moderately. However, he was the drunkest, and he cried loudly because he had just broken up with his girlfriend. His friend Jiho was bragging about himself being the best drinker while drinking. Sungwoo was also drunk but didn't show any strange expressions. While the two drunk friends were making noise, Seo Jin calmly observed Sungwoo. Suddenly, Jin Kook rushed over and hugged Seo Jin tightly, crying and telling his story, while Jiho kept praising himself as the best drinker. Seo Jin shouted helplessly, "Shut up, you drunkards." At that time, Sungwoo suddenly stood up and stared at Seo Jin. Then he kicked Jin Kook away from Seo Jin. "When did you stand here?" Seo Jin asked in surprise. Sungwoo didn't say anything. Seeing the two friends were drunk, Seo Jin suggested taking them back to the room. He said he would take Jiho back and hand Jin Kook to Sungwoo, but before he finished speaking, Sungwoo loudly said, "I don't like it." Seo Jin threw Jiho onto the floor, then turned to blame Sungwoo. "I carry a lot alone, you should carry one too," he said. Sungwoo, not wanting to, still sat stubbornly. Suddenly, he seemed dizzy too. Sungwoo frowned, feeling uncomfortable. Seo Jin, surprised, then intrigued, sat down and stared at Sungwoo's face, asking, "Even if you're drunk, you don't show anything, huh?" Sungwoo stayed silent for a moment, then looked up at Seo Jin and said something. Seo Jin smiled happily. This was the moment he knew that when drunk, Sungwoo would become so honest. Sungwoo stood in the kitchen, drying his hands and looking at his silent, empty house. It felt really quiet. It had been a long time since he felt this atmosphere. Back in the early days of high school, Sungwoo felt irritated as he approached the noisy classroom. Suddenly someone unexpectedly wiped in front of him. Sungwoo stood still, staring for a while, unconsciously shielding his eyes from the dazzling light emitted by Seo Jin. Since then, Seo Jin's cheerful innocence had touched Sungwoo's heart. 7 years passed like that. Time flew by quickly. The doorbell rang, and immediately he went to open it, only to find Seo Jin standing there, smiling and saying, "I'm here, are you really angry? Both of us didn't contact each other at all." Seo Jin raised the bag full of beer and asked, "Can I come in?" Seo Jin chanted while eating cake, "We've known each other for so many years, why did you cut off contact? You surprised me a little." "Come on, let's have another can." Seo Jin handed another can to Sungwoo. Taking the beer, Sungwoo said, "You really are." "What?" Seo Jin asked with a bright smile. Sungwoo glanced but said nothing more. He raised the beer can to drink and frowned slightly. Seeing that expression, Seo Jin smiled contentedly because his face still looked the same as before. Seo Jin continued to urge, "Drink up, come on, drink." Suddenly, Sungwoo asked, "What do you think?" Seo Jin raised the beer can and asked back, "What about?" Sungwoo stared at Seo Jin and replied, "You know, about me liking you." Recognizing that Sungwoo was drunk, Seo Jin calmly responded, "Yeah, I know, since high school, I've known where it came from." Sungwoo's eyes widened for a moment, then he continued to drink and said, "You also know that I've given up, but why do you still want to tease me like this?" Seo Jin grinned mischievously, thinking to himself, "Sorry, but I really like your expression when you're moved by me, just like now." Seeing Sungwoo using both hands to cover his face, Seo Jin reached out to touch him but suddenly pulled back. In front of him was Sungwoo looking sad, holding his face and sobbing uncontrollably, his choked sobs echoing continuously. Seo Jin gently touched Sungwoo's hair, knowing that his own preference was truly terrible. Seo Jin leaned closer and kissed Sungwoo, then pushed him down to the floor and sat on top of him. Sungwoo cried and looked confused at the person in front of him. Realizing Seo Jin's intentions, Sungwoo abruptly pushed him away, saying, "Are you drunk? Anyway, now." Before he could finish, Seo Jin held Sungwoo's face and kissed his cheek, complimenting, "You're so cute." Seo Jin smiled as he looked at Sungwoo, pleased that Han Sungwoo was crying because of him. Sungwoo began to reciprocate by embracing Seo Jin. They continued to exchange sweet kisses, the atmosphere becoming more intense, Seo Jin's hands becoming restless. Whispering softly, Seo Jin remarked, "Friends usually do this to each other, but this is our first time, right? Usually, you do everything yourself." As Seo Jin spoke, he nibbled at various places, causing Sungwoo to use his hand to cover his mouth to avoid making embarrassing sounds, then he angrily said, "Stop it." Seo Jin's hands continued to exert pressure, causing Sungwoo to struggle and eventually collapse onto Seo Jin's shoulder, exhausted. What will come will come. In drunkenness and overflowing emotions, the two individuals merged into one. The next afternoon, Seo Jin finally woke up, having slept through the closed curtains without knowing anything. Seeing Sung-woo sleeping peacefully beside him, Seo-jin gently stroked his hair and silently praised, "Even when sleeping, this face is adorable, like a baby." Disturbed, Sung-woo's face became annoyed, then he turned to Seo-jin and said, "Stop it." "Okay, sorry, go back to sleep, I won't bother you anymore." Seo-jin gently kissed Sung-woo's cheek. Sung-woo turned away, his ears turning red with embarrassment. After a few seconds of silence, Seo-jin began to reminisce about their high school days. "You should sleep," Sung-woo said helplessly. He wore a standard suit to prepare for work. He mentioned he would be back late today because there was a welcome party for the new employees at the company, so he advised Seo-jin to sleep before waiting for him. Seo-jin attentively admired Sung-woo wearing the well-fitted suit, then blurted out, "Excellent." Hurrying off, Sung-woo missed Seo-jin's embrace. He turned around and said, "I'll leave now." "Have a good day at work," Seo-jin replied while his hands remained stiff for a moment. Sung-woo sighed. He hasn't been working for long, but he seems too busy. The party ended earlier than planned, so Sung-woo texted Seo-jin on the train back home. Seo-jin had just finished work too and replied, "I know, hurry home, okay?" accompanied by a cute heart emoji. Sung-woo didn't understand Seo-jin's hint. Upon arriving home and not seeing Seo-jin around, Sung-woo wondered where he could be, thinking he must have gone to bed already. Suddenly, Seo-jin appeared from somewhere and hugged him tightly, nibbling on Sung-woo's sensitive neck. "Wait, what are you doing?" "I just got home, move aside so I can take off my coat." Sung-woo tried to escape from Seo-jin's embrace. However, Seo-jin insisted on holding him, saying, "Don't laugh, the suit looks great. Let's do this, it's so fun to play office worker with you." Seo-jin chuckled mischievously. Sung-woo hesitantly asked, "Do you have any weird preferences?" He didn't know before, but seeing Seo-jin in this outfit, he suddenly liked it, and since he had to work during the week, he had resisted, but tomorrow was Saturday. "Okay?" Seo-jin nuzzled Sung-woo's leg and asked with a cute pout. Unable to resist this pleading look, Sung-woo blushed and replied, "Wait for me to shower." To please Seo-jin, Sung-woo ended up wearing office attire again after showering. Seo-jin shamelessly claimed to be very excited, then teased Sung-woo, asking if he was also like that. "You're too noisy," Sung-woo snapped. It was the first time both of them played this game, the lucky host and the cool employee. Then the next morning, Seo-jin proposed a new game. Seo-jin enthusiastically claimed he was just trying it out, but unexpectedly, there were many games like that. "What do you think of this one?" Seo-jin asked, laughing, "The police uniform, it must suit you well." "You're the one who's enlightened about these weird preferences," Sung-woo asked casually. "Well, trying something new once in a while won't hurt, it's fun," Seo-jin smiled. "I really like it," Seo-jin replied with a smile. Despite pretending to be indifferent, Sung-woo had also imagined Seo-jin wearing that outfit. Since then, Sung-woo's photo library has been full of pictures of Seo-jin. Hearing someone call, Seo-jin turns her head to look back. He smiles gently at the person in front of him, and Sung-woo stands there looking at Seo-jin. Seo-jin immediately runs towards Sung-woo, but then she passes him to go to her friends. It turns out that the two have never known each other before. As always, he is alone in his own world. Sung-woo wakes up from his dream. Even though the two have been living together for a while now, the dream still haunts him. Sometimes he is confused about whether this is reality or not. "Are you awake?" "You were sleeping just now?" Seo-jin asks. Sung-woo does not answer, continues to play with Seo-jin's hair, then leans down to kiss him. "What's up, what do you want to do?" Seo-jin asks mischievously. Even though Sung-woo said it wasn't like that, Seo-jin continues to tease, "Because you keep touching me, so I thought yesterday was not enough, haha." Sung-woo looks at Seo-jin and says, "Your hair has grown a lot." Seeing that Sung-woo often cuts his own hair, Seo-jin asks if he wants to cut her hair. Sung-woo hesitates for fear of messing up, but Seo-jin trusts him and entrusts her hair to Sung-woo. He just needs to trim a bit of the hair ends. "If it's messed up, I'll go to the salon to fix it, it's no problem." After a while of fumbling, Seo-jin is ready to have her boyfriend cut her hair. Sung-woo looks at easy-to-cut hairstyles at home, hesitates and says, "When it's done, don't say anything." "Yeah, it's okay," Seo-jin replies. While Sung-woo is trimming her hair, Seo-jin asks him what he was dreaming about earlier because his expression was strange. Sung-woo covers Seo-jin's eyes with his hand. "Hair will fall into your eyes, close your eyes." Then he slowly tells, "Back in high school, sometimes I dreamt about it. I liked you, followed you alone, held hope alone. I thought maybe the two of us would end without even a touch. I thought my unrequited love would end like that. Although I know I like him, I have no intention of getting closer to him. I just think this love will pass like that. One day, he suddenly invited me to play basketball. Now thinking back, I'm still flustered. But if it weren't for that unexpected turn, we would probably just graduate and he wouldn't even know who I am. So sometimes, I feel like our current situation is not real. Seo-jin laughed and replied, then he should look at me moderately. How could I not know, when he looks at me with a cold face, but his eyes are so scrutinizing. We have known each other since high school, but unexpectedly we still maintain the relationship until now. It's been a long time, Sungwoo wiped Seo-jin's face and replied, it's been a long time indeed. From the first time I met him, I thought, this person makes me unable to take my eyes off. Did I know his quirky personality later? If I still dream that dream, then I really like him, right? Seo-jin's heart was pounding, feeling like being confessed by Sungwoo again. The first time was at graduation, Sungwoo confessed to him. But he pretended not to hear to continue the quirky hobby of watching her expressions when she was moved by him. This is the second confession from her, but he can't return it. He is just like when he was in high school, short hair looks cute, Sungwoo laughed and said. Seo-jin was moved by those words, although his appearance has changed but Sungwoo's feelings are still the same as before. I also love you, Seo-jin said firmly. Sungwoo was surprised and then smiled brightly, it seems that I can't control my expression when I'm next to him. Sungwoo bent down and gave Seo-jin a sweet kiss.